They sent us up in late February, when the mountains looked like the bones of the earth and the sky had no color left. The order said, "Search and recover the missing hikers from the Polytechnic Institute." It sounded routine, simple on paper. It wasn't. Lieutenant Sergei Antonov led the team, a man carved from cold and habit. Kolya Voronin, our tracker, walked a few paces ahead, reading the snow like a map. Medic Alexei Grigoriev moved quietly, his eyes always scanning the distance as though he could sense what the rest of us couldn't. 2 student volunteers followed behind, breathing hard through their scarves. And me, Andrei Sokolov, the one with the camera. "Keep your faces covered," Sergei called through the wind. "Frost takes faster than fear." Kolya laughed under his breath. "Fear's got longer teeth, sir." We trudged upward. The snow was dry and sharp, more like ground glass than ice. The higher we went, the less sound there was. No birds, no crack of trees, just the squeak of our boots and the hiss of the wind. It didn't feel like weather. It felt like absence. By mid-afternoon, we found the tent. Half collapsed, half buried, one wall sliced open from the inside. The ropes were still tight. I remember the strange stillness of it. Even the fabric didn't move. Inside were boots, 8 pairs, neatly lined up, coats folded, food half-eaten, a flashlight still faintly glowing. Everything was organized, calm, not what panic looks like. "They didn't run from weather," Kolya said, crouching to inspect the slit. "Maybe an avalanche scared them," Sergei said. "They cut their way out." Alexei shook his head. "No sign of collapse." I looked around the tent again. The sleeping bags were spread open, not thrown aside, their knives and journals untouched. The air smelled faintly of metal and cold smoke. Outside, we found footprints leading downhill, bare feet and socks. 9 sets, straight line. Kolya crouched, brushing frost from one of the prints. "They walked," he said quietly. "Not ran, just walked away." Sergei scowled. "Hypothermia makes people act strangely. That's all." "Then why in formation?" Kolya muttered. "Why all the same way?" I didn't say anything, but I could feel the question sinking into my chest like ice. We made camp beside the ruined tent. The cold hit harder after sundown. The air had weight to it, pressing on our lungs. Alexei sat near the stove, rubbing his hands. "You ever notice how quiet snow makes things?" he said. "That's good," Sergei replied. "Means the wind's died down." "No," Alexei said softly. "This is the wrong kind of quiet, like the world's waiting for something." He smiled faintly, but his eyes didn't. When everyone else turned in, I opened one of the hikers' journals. The first pages were full of jokes and sketches, little notes about meals and songs. On the last page, the writing broke apart, letters gouged deep into the paper, a single word pressed so hard it tore through. "Hush." I closed the book and put it back where I found it, but that word wouldn't leave me. The next morning, we found the first 2 bodies under a cedar tree. Yuri Krivonishenko and Georgy Doroshenko, barefoot, half-naked, their fingers full of bark. They'd tried to make a fire from wet wood. The branches above them were snapped halfway up. "They climbed," Alexei said quietly. "To look for the tent?" I asked. "To get away," Kolya said. The snow around them had melted and frozen again, smooth as glass. I raised my camera, took a photo, and felt like I was stealing from them. By noon, we found 3 more bodies: Dyatlov, Zina Kolmogorova, and Rustam Slobodin. They lay halfway back to camp, arms outstretched as if crawling home. Their eyes were open, their expressions peaceful. "They were going back," Alexei said. "They didn't get far," Sergei answered. Kolya's voice cracked a little. "Something stopped them." I didn't want to ask what. That night, the wind stopped completely. Not slowed, stopped. The silence felt physical, pressing against the skin. Kolya whispered, "You hear that?" Sergei said, "There's nothing to hear." "That's what I mean," Kolya replied. Then it began. A low vibration under the snow, subtle but steady. It moved beneath us, then around us, like a bow drawn across the earth. Our tent ropes shivered. The radio came alive, hissing static that pulsed in rhythm with the vibration. "That's not interference," Alexei said. "Turn it off," Sergei ordered. "It's already off," I told him. No one spoke after that. The sound circled us once, then vanished. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. When I finally slept, I dreamed of footsteps crunching in the snow, slow and deliberate, stopping just outside the tent. The next day, we dug into a ravine and found the last 4. They'd built a den out of branches, careful and methodical. Lyudmila Dubinina lay near the entrance. Her ribs were crushed inward, her mouth frozen open. Her tongue was gone. Alexei bent beside her. "How can ribs collapse like that with no bruising?" "Sound can do that," Kolya whispered. Sergei snapped, "That's enough!" But his hands were shaking. That night, I lay awake listening to my own heartbeat, wondering if the mountain had one too. I couldn't stop thinking of Lyudmila's notebook. The word carved there, "hush," felt less like a warning and more like a command. When I finally slept, I dreamed the tent was whole again. The hikers sat inside, faces calm, eyes pale with frost. They were whispering softly. Not numbers, names. Every time they said a name, I felt something tug inside my chest, like air being pulled out of me. I tried to speak, but only a hum came out, low and steady, the same sound we'd heard under the snow. I woke up gasping, blood on my lips. The tent flap was open, but the air was still. We left the mountain the next morning. No one spoke. The silence followed us down like a second shadow. At one point, Kolya asked quietly, "You think it's done with us?" Sergei didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was flat. It was never about us. Back at base, I filed the photos and signed the report. The official wording was simple: cause of death, hypothermia, and physical trauma. Circumstances, exposure to unknown natural force. I stared at the page for a long time before signing. The ink froze halfway through my name. Weeks later, I received a letter, no return address. Inside was one typed sentence: "Keep silent, all flesh." The paper smelled faintly of pine smoke, like the trees near the ravine. I burned it, but the smoke lingered in the room for hours, curling in the corners like it was looking for somewhere to stay. Now, years later, my son sometimes asks for stories. I tell him the safe one: lost hikers, bad weather, tragedy. He smiles. Then, without realizing it, he hums, a low, steady note that vibrates through the air, just like the one we heard on that mountain. When he does, the room goes still. The walls seem to lean closer, listening. And I remember what Sergei said that final night as the ropes trembled against the frozen tent. "It's not the cold that kills, Andrei." "Then what does?" I asked. "The quiet that comes before it." He was wrong. It's not the quiet that kills, it's the quiet that stays.